Ciao, paisans. Welcome back. Welcome back. Oh my God, I am so excited. It's like a kid on Christmas, a kid on Hanukkah, where it's the night before everyone is asleep throughout the house. Serie A is almost here. It's almost here. We are recording here Tuesday night, just a couple of days before the season premiere this Saturday. And can I just tell you, it's going to be an absolutely electric weekend for us paisans. Welcome back to Calcio Culture. I am your host today, Logs. I'm here with my co-host and home style biggest fan of Juve this side of the Atlantic, my boy Mats. Mats, how we feeling?
Feeling good. We're feeling good. Definitely not the night before Christmas as it's 4 nights away, but definitely feeling that anticipation. Extremely excited for match week 1. Always frustrating that the Serie A, for whatever reason, it feels like the last top 5 European leagues to start every year. You see the Prem, you see the Serie A, you see other
La
leagues getting
Liga.
their La Liga, you
Yep.
see other leagues getting their match week 1 in the week before, and I'm sitting here waiting for the Serie A to start. Kind of similar to the transfer market, just other leagues doing business, and the Serie A just sitting here waiting. But very excited for this week to come, this weekend for match week 1, and very excited for this preview. As obviously, I'm a big Juventus fan. I am the Juventus fan of Calcio Culture, so excited to take a dive in the Juve preview.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Paisans, this is our last team season preview of the series from this summer. Thank you for tagging along all summer long. Next week, our episode will be our table preview. We'll get a little sneak peek from the games this weekend, but in any case, we're calling it top to bottom in our next session next week. So stay tuned for that. But like Mats said, very excited for tonight. We're going to go into everything Juventus, everything coming out of Turin, and let's just jump right into it. There's a lot to be said here. There's a lot to be talked about. Juve in a very precarious spot. So let's just jump right in, Mats. Just to give you paisans a little bit of the layout of where we stand with Juve today and where they ended up last season. 4th place in Serie A. Gets them right back into the Champions League. Nice chunk of change in the pockets for the window this summer. Seems like it's come in handy. Not particularly. We did get knocked out. Champions League knockout round to PSV, I believe, Mats. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct. Embarrassing game. There was no heart on the pitch at all in that game under Mata, and then parlayed it right into a back-to-back game to a quarterfinal knockout to Empoli's backups, which was basically the last straw for Mata and saw him sacked.
Yeah, that was a tumultuous strip of games there for Juve, and not to be taken lightly. They were knocked out of the Supercoppa by Milan, by the Rossoneri, who went on to win that trophy. So with that being said, as we all know, 10 games left in the season. Thiago Motta relieved of his duties at the managerial position. You bring in Tudor as the interim manager, Mats, and at the end of the season, apparently did well enough to get the full-time spot. What do we think about that?
Well, listen, Tudor did his job, which was qualify for Champions League football with 10 games left. So the contract that was offered to him was if he was able to do that, he would get another year. Another reason why Juventus brought Tudor in is because he has played for Juventus before. He absolutely loves the badge, has the Juventus DNA, and was fully ready to just manage Juventus for 10 games. And if they had to move on, they moved on. He was okay with them moving on. Obviously, they tried to do that in the summer, trying to get Conte. He then ended up staying with Napoli and getting everything that De Laurentiis did promise him, which I may add, with how many players they've been signing. Then Juventus obviously pivoted to Gasperini. He went to Roma. And then it basically was Tudor's the only guy left here. So let's just stick with Tudor. They spun it. We always wanted him, but that clearly wasn't the case. So that kind of set the precedent, to be honest, for this whole market that Juventus has had this summer, is trying to go after maybe A or B plans and not really being able to get those done, to then relying on C to D plans. But listen, Tudor brings a different type of energy. And that
100%.
energy, I've said throughout all of last season, Juventus has been missing. So hopefully we can, or we will start to see that again, and Tudor will instill that in the players.
Certainly. And then I think, to your point, definitely loves the badge. You can tell he's been there before. He's played for the team, and we saw him live twice now. Saw him once in Torino, and then once here in Philadelphia in the U.S., and both times just an absolutely fiery character. Didn't matter what minute of the game, did not matter how far ahead Juve was, which in both games were ahead by a lot. This guy is on top of it, on top of the players. Nothing gets past him. Very, very high expectations from him to the squad, so I can get behind that. Another big switch before we get into the mercato for Juve, and I think the man at the helm of this mercato is the successor to Juntali, who, Mats, we know you do not like, but he is officially gone. He has been replaced. You bring in Damien Comolli. Now, this man has spent a ton of time throughout different leagues, has been in the game for close to 30 years now. Most recently, the president of Toulouse. Toulouse is a French team, Ligue 1. He was at the helm when the club won their first Coupe de France. And he also brought the team, at least from a sporting director position, president position, to the Europa League. That's presumably the 5th spot in Ligue 1 in 2023, 2024. Quick highlights on what this guy's done in the past months, real quick. He has signed the likes of none other than Luka Modric, Milan star now. For some of you Premier League fans from way back in the day, he did sign Berbatov to Spurs, and then for a short stint at Liverpool, he is the one and only that brought in both Luis Suarez and Andy Carroll on the deadline day, and Liverpool captain, first and only to win the Champions League? Prem? For Liverpool, Jordan Henderson. Mats.
Yeah, so Comolli has spent a lot. He's actually been around, like you said, for 30 years, and he's been at different roles. He's been a scout. He's been at any position in the front office he has been. And also a quick point about his last stint. He started in 2020 and actually gained promotion for that club. So they were a League 2 team, was able to gain promotion, and then they qualified for the Europa League by winning the Coupe de France. They didn't finish 5th, but by winning that, you get an automatic Europa League spot. But a newly promoted team, not that they won it when they were newly, but being able to, in his stint, he started at 2020, got them promoted, and then also won the Coupe de France, and then got them to play European football on a team that was not in the top flight in France, is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
What he's known for is Moneyball, if you will. He's a big data guy. He has spreadsheets. He's data driven. He likes to analyze players and use the statistics that he gets in order to buy or bring in players. So obviously this is year 0. He inherited a lot of what Juntali left him from last summer, all of those loans with obligations to buy, which is one of the reasons it frustrates me why Juventus still does that strategy. But they obviously have to, not having all the money. But he's had his hands tied from all of these obligations to buy that Juntali has had. So he hasn't been able to necessarily have his fingerprints on this mercato, but he has had a couple moves since he has came into the helm. But excited to see what he can do, because we saw him do so much with so little, and now he's going to be given a lot more resources and materials to make a large club kind of successful again, hopefully.
Sure. And honestly, that whole Moneyball approach to soccer has been a huge move in the last couple of years. I think the biggest brand that we can think of for Moneyball has been always Brentford from the Prem. And I think that data-driven type of recruiting, type of transfer strategy has certainly led its way through the different leagues. And honestly, if he's a big stats guy, that's perfect for you, Mats, because you are a big stats guy. So we love that.
I do like the stats. But also what it will help us do is Juventus is kind of, in Serie A in general, kind of need to shift to more of a find younger talent, find underrated guys, and make them good, because obviously we don't have the money to compete with the Prem. So that is where I think the Serie A needs to shift to, and he is hopefully bringing that to Juventus.
See, you say that, Mats, but Juve continues to sell other young guys, and I guess that's a great segue into what have you done in the market so far. And again, like you said, a lot of this is a little bit of a legacy transaction scenario, but just a quick rundown here. We have Timothy Weah out the door on a loan to Marseille. Alberto Costa, technically just a swap deal for João Mario to Porto. You let go of Samuel Mbagula, who is as a pod, huge fans. He's going to Bundesliga. He left for just 10 million euros. Stefano Gori goes on a free. Mattia De Seglio finally leaves the team. Luca Pellegrini also off the team. And then these three guys kill me, and I'm sure they kill you too. But we see Nicola Ravella go officially. That happened technically last summer, but officially now through the books. Hans Nicolucci Caviglia, who went to Venezia. That's done deal, $3.5 million. And then unfortunately, we see Nicola Fagioli go to Fiorentina full time. That's a $14 million deal based on some metrics from this past season. So guys going out the door could have been the ones for the long term. Just couldn't keep them. Couldn't figure it out from Juntali.
Yeah, and so that's a total of 64 million out the door. Listen, right now, I know that we've been kicking and screaming that we sell all of our young players because of some of the guys that we're going to talk about on who we've brought in. We just need to have some type of money coming in, and the only players that have some attraction are obviously our young guys like Mbangula, even Alberto Costa. He showed some promise at the year end, but it's to raise some funds. So we were able, technically speaking, the deal for Acosta, Juventus did get a capital gain of like 2 million. Not a lot,
Sure.
but something to at least help the books. But Rovella and Fagioli, I'm kind of already past. Like that happened in the winter of last year for Fagioli and last summer for Rovella. So I'm kind of already over that one and not letting it affect me. But
some mental fortitude for you there.
But yeah, listen, I mean, I will say Comolli so far to start he did get the loan for Weah is initial loan 1 million, and then the buy is 17. So not a bad job selling there, but he has had some been struggling to sell some of these Juventus players, which Giuntoli which everyone before him within Juventus has struggled with, and that's selling players. But he was hired middle of June, so didn't have the full market to really put his fingerprints on it. So I'm hoping that last couple of weeks he can start to make some moves, because we are linked with some very good names. We're linked with some names out. The market still has a couple of weeks, so hopefully he can start to spread his wings and sell some guys to bring some in. But his hands are tied very much because of who we brought in this year and who we brought in. We've spent 119 million. Now, these names that I'm going to tell you, a lot of them are players that we had last season, right? So most of these guys are what Giuntoli kicked down the curb. So Nico Gonzalez, we paid Fiorentina 28 million for. Michele Di Gregorio, we paid Monza 14 million for, which is a bargain right there. Yeah. Lloyd Kelly, Newcastle 17 million is one of the worst signings in the history of Juventus. Kalulu to Milan, or Kalulu 14 million to Milan, good signing.
Great signing.
Then we brought in Jonathan Davis on a free, which is a great bit of business. That guy has been a lethal scorer in the La Liga. He averages a goal about every 120 minutes or so. We'll see what he can do in the Serie A. Obviously, different league, different type of style of play, but Juventus lack goals, and at the very least, he can score goals.
Yeah, coming from Ligue 1, and technically there was a big agent fee, right? 9 mil, 10 mil.
It was like 11 million, but if you think about it, getting a striker in today's market for 11, 10 million, I'll take that any day.
Good deal.
He also, the original fee was supposed to be like 30, and then it was 15, and Comolli got it down to this 10, 11 million. Jonathan David actually talked with his agents to get it down because he wanted to come to Juventus so much. So that's always good.
Always good.
Next signing would be Francisco Conceição to Porto for 32 million, which is actually more than the original fee. However, the reason why they did it this way is because they were able to spread out the installments and paying them over a longer period of time. So because of that, they added a couple mil, but still saving them some money on the front end, which is good. And then lastly is the first deal that Comolli kind of did himself, and that would be João Mario from Porto for 13 million, which Juventus fans were up in arms about. I wasn't the most thrilled because of who we let go, and Alberto Costa, who showed a lot of promise in the last couple Serie A games and in the Club World Cup. But in the last two friendlies, João Mario, from a attacking style or attacking standpoint has been very good. He has been a key piece in 2 goals, one against Dortmund and one against Atalanta. So he got a lot of heat from Juventus fans, but he has been very promising in the friendlies. So I'm excited to see more from him.
Sure. And we'll talk about Jonathan David, Conceição, and Jean Mario more when we go through the roster. But let's definitely touch on the links that we have going into the last couple weeks of the transfer window. Again, we've got, I guess, 2 more weeks now, so definitely dwindling, but a lot of action to be had. And I think when you look at it from the past couple of summers, there's definitely a lot of action that comes down to the wire, especially in Serie A. So quickly to touch on who could potentially be leaving, because I want to drive this into who's coming in, because I do think that Comolli has a game plan here, just needs the funds to execute. So a couple of names that are on the outskirts: Dusan, Vlahovic, linked to a bunch of clubs at this point. Looking at Milan, looking at Napoli, who Lukaku's just gotten injured for 3 to 4 months, so they're definitely in the market for a striker here. Dusan could be on the outs for 10 to 20 million. His contract is certainly a problem, which keeps him from going faster than that, but we'll see where he ends up. He's, from my perspective, definitely going out the door this transfer window. We have Nico Gonzalez, who's pretty closely linked to leaving as well. You guys, Roma's in on Nico Gonzalez.
Roma and Atletico Madrid.
Both great landing spots for Nico, I think, to get a fresh start, but Juve is asking for basically what they paid for, avoiding that capital loss, about 30 million euros there. Arthur Melo has been on the books since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. I don't know how he's still on the roster, but he might be out the door for a bag of chips or so. And then another name that I think is interesting and very much just on the doorstep, just needs to walk outside, is Douglas Luiz. He is on his way to Nottingham Forest, presumably the next couple of days, for 30 to 40 million euros, which, to be honest, it just hasn't worked. He hasn't been the player that they brought in from Villa. And to be fair, the price tag that you paid for Douglas Luiz at the end of the day, considering the 2 players that you sent to Villa, you're not going to really book that much of a loss here. And that's still a good amount of money coming back in for a player that just hasn't worked. You noted here that Lloyd Kelly might also be out the door, but I have no idea who would want to sign that guy, so I'm not sure that that's going to work.
He's had some rumblings from the Prem, like Sunderland and Crystal Palace potentially, but it sounds like he kind of wants to stay at Juventus, obviously, because they have Champions League football. But yeah, so he's going to be a tough sell for sure.
So with that being said, assumably we get some funds in, what is Comolli going to do? Who is going to fill out this Juve roster?
Yeah, so the first person that Juve has to get done, and it's embarrassing that it's taken this long to get done, is obviously Randall Colomwani.
Dude, is this guy coming? Is he? I don't think he's coming.
No, he has rejected every single club that has approached him. Galatasaray, whatever that club is in.
Galatasaray.
Yeah, thank you. Saudi clubs, Tottenham Hotspurs. He's rejected them all. He wants Juve. Juventus have an agreement with him for a contract of 7 million. He's lowering his salary to come to Juventus. The only part now is to get the deal done with PSG. They're looking for 60 million. Juventus want to maybe fit in the 50 million range, loan him for the first year at 10 million, to then have an obligation to buy between 45 to 50. You take that plus the fee that they've already paid to have him for December to the Club World Cup, it would come in to be a total of 56 million to get that done. This needs to get done. It's embarrassing that it hasn't gotten done yet. He's not going to be on the team for Parma, which is very frustrating, but a player doing everything he can to join the club, and the club is, I understand they could be just dragging their feet so that fee can come down because he's rejected so many, but we've seen too many times, Todibo last year, you've seen it in Milan, that a Serie A club drags their feet, and the player can only wait so long. He wants to get incorporated to the team. He wants to get in game shape. He wants to be playing with the guys, so eventually he's just going to take more money elsewhere. However, I really appreciate how Colomani has gone about it, and you can see that he wants to be in the Juventus club, which I like, because that's what we need. We need players that want to play for Juventus.
Right. And I mean, to be honest, based on everything that we've seen from the player on the field and everything he said off the field, I do agree. I think this gets done. The problem is Colomwani cannot afford to be on PSG's roster when this window closes. So if he needs to figure out another option in terms of maybe he goes to the Prem, maybe he does go to Saudi, he cannot be on this PSG roster. There is no spot for him. He's never been in their plans ever since he was signed there last summer, 2 summers ago. They literally brought in Gonzalo Ramos in the same exact window for the same exact price tag, and he's gone every single minute over Colomwani, so he needs to leave. So from that standpoint, to what you said, a lot of Serie A clubs tend to do this, drag their feet, nickel and dime other leagues over, a couple million here or there, and you lose the opportunity to bring in a guy who really wants to be there. The first sale that goes through, Juve probably need to up their offer at least 5 million euros here to at least be like, we're here to get this done. Let's work together, because PSG knows that they're in the pole position to do whatever they need to do, and probably can find a suitor in the last week of this transfer window. So if Colomwani doesn't get done, this is horrible
Yeah,
look, not only on Juve but Serie A.
I'll be a very frustrated Juventus fan if Randall Colomwani is not a Juventus player for how long he's waited, how many teams he's rejected, how much he's came out and said, I only want Juventus, and then Juventus just can't get it done. So I'll be frustrated there. And also just the way that he plays with Yildiz is another thing that we saw up close and personal for half of a game in Italy and then a full game in Philadelphia. They have great chemistry. The way Tudor likes to play up top, being very fluid. Colomwani can slot in anywhere of the front three and play off of anybody. He has great link-up play. Was by far the best player on the pitch from January to the end of the season for Juventus. And the reason why Juventus is in Champions League is because of Randall Colomwani. So just bring him back.
Not a bad shout.
But in recent weeks, we've actually just been linked with Zagrova from Lille, which I'm
That's your boy.
Thrilled about. I've liked him a lot for the last couple of years. Have been hoping Juventus to do approach Lille for him for the last couple of transfer windows. Never have. For whatever reason, it just came about that they were interested, and it's looking like 15 to maybe 25 million. I think the 20 to 25 is a little too high for him because he's on his last year of contract, and he's already told Lille, I'm not coming back. So a 15 million price tag, I think, is fair, and I pray that can get done, because if Colomwani and Zagrova can come in. However, let me preference that Zagrova will only come if Nico Gonzalez leaves. So we need to sell Nico to get Zagrova. If we have an up top of Randall Colomwani, Jonathan David, Yildiz, Conceição, and Zagrova, that is an up top that can compete for a Scudetto game in and game out, no matter who you play. I really like that up top, no matter who you're playing. So it excites me, but obviously two out of those 6 guys aren't on the team today.
Right.
But the potential of getting both of these guys in is very exciting.
Sure. And Mats, really quick. So presumably Zagrova came on the radar after the Jadon Sancho links kind of fell through. Can you give the Paisans a quick run through of why you're so excited about Zagrova, what kind of player he is, maybe in 1 minute?
Yeah. Listen, he's very similar to Conceição. However, he's extremely way more polished. He is a great decision maker. He's going to extremely good left-footed player. He wants to cut in. He wants to score. He wants to curl it. He's already played with Jonathan David, and he knows Jonathan David, so that is a plus. Lille played against Juventus in the Champions League, and they won, and there was a goal scored by Zagrova. He got the ball on his own, on Juventus's 18, dribble past Juan Cabal, put in a ball for Jonathan David, and Jonathan David scored, and we lost the game on that one play. He's electric. He's exciting. He can turn the game in a second. So he's a very, very good player, and it'd be a very good deal for 15 million.
I'd love to see it. And I did forget that he's got that chemistry already with Jonathan David, which would be huge coming in to a new league for him. We do have 3 more links here. I'll just quickly touch on Renato Vega, still lingering in the background. Obviously played for Juve last year, went back to Chelsea. Chelsea has put him literally at the bottom of their depth chart at center back, and are still asking for 40 million euros. Not sure where that price tag is coming from, considering it's literally their last guy on the bench. They have had some injury woes already at center back this season, so maybe Chelsea holds on to him. But if Vega comes back, slots right in, was a perfect player for Juve. Mats, touch on Molina and Matt O'Reilly.
So Molina's also linked with the Nico Gonzalez transfer to Atletico Madrid. It doesn't seem like if we bring in Molina, we aren't going to bring in Zagrova. It seems like we'd still potentially bring in both. Molina he kind of fell out of favor over there at Atletico Madrid, but he was played in the Serie A before, was sold to Atletico Madrid for around 30 million 2 years ago, won a World Cup, is just an absolute engine on the right wing back spot. In that World Cup, I think he played every single minute of every single game, scored a goal against the Netherlands, great defender, very good in attack, just a very, very solid player that would reinforce our right wing back position, which right now is pretty weak. So I'm very excited for this. I really want this to get done as well. This would be a great bit of business. Knows the league, great player. And then Matt O'Reilly, don't really want him. We were linked to him 2 years ago. He went to Brighton, and now we're linked to him again. I don't see the need for him, especially since we're playing
Yeah,
a
I feel like your
two-man.
midfield's pretty good right now.
Exactly. Like the reason why we're linked to him is because Douglas Luiz is gone. They think that they need a replacement, but we play a two-man midfield. Thuram and Locatelli start. Coop Miners, McKennie can fill in there. So we're a little. Well, we have. I mean, we have. Yeah. So we're a little
I
thin,
would
but Matt
say
O'Reilly is not in the two. He would be playing behind a striker, which maybe he could be a backup for Yildiz, but I don't know the fee that they'd be looking to. But I don't want Matt O'Reilly personally. I think you should focus on Zagrova, Randall Colomwani, Molina, and then oh my gosh, a center back. Like we need a center back.
we'll talk about the center back in a second. I think that there's some flexibility there, but people do forget Molina, the winning PK taker for Argentina in 2 consecutive tournaments. Guys, cool as a cucumber. So with that being said, a lot of transfers to be had, both in and out of Turin here. It's going to be a wild next 2 weeks. Camilo has a
Comolli.
Comolli, excuse me, has a lot of work ahead of him and really needs to show his stuff. I mean, this is prime time. This is where that position really shines. So hopefully he can get that done using that Juve badge to his favor. Guys, Paisans, we're going to jump into the roster review. This is really the meat of the episode here. But just to preface it all with the fact that I think we can talk about this, Mats, with the idea that Colomwani is on the roster.
Yes.
I feel like that's a safe way to play this, even though it's not totally done, like we just said. I would like to consider him there because I think it's a really big part and a really big building block to what this season could be for Juve. So, just to preface this, Tudor does play that 3-4-2-1 style, 3 center backs, 2 wing backs, 2 holding midfielders, 2 wide cams, 2 wide 10s almost that are more like that can play that wing as well. So, like I guess you would call that a 7 or Trickerista, I think as they call it, and then a striker. Although Mats, as you said before, you would love to see a 2-striker system here, so it could be fluid going into the next couple of months. But just really quickly, Mats, what's Tudor's big emphasis on the play style?
Yeah, so Tudor is definitely different than what we saw under Matza for the first 8 or so months of last season. Matza obviously heavy possession, wants the ball. Tudor much more direct in the buildup, doesn't really necessarily want the ball, but when we don't have the ball, a very, very aggressive, high pressing, high intensity. We want the ball back. We want to win the ball back close to the opposition's 18 to create better opportunities for us to score. He wants quick transitions and very fluid in the final third, which is probably the most exciting part I've seen under Tudor, is that fluidity in the final third that we've had with Randall, Colomwani, and Yildiz specifically, and Conceição can fill in when needed there, but it's really in between Colomwani and Yildiz, which is very exciting. But then also heavy possession or in and around the 18 to try to create overloads to create and score. But going to be a different style of play. We won't see Juventus necessarily dominate possession so much as they did last season under Tudor.
I think the one thing that I want to give Tudor his flowers for is that he's completely inherited a team that he did not build and that he did not request, but he's gotten the most out of it. And I'm not saying that this Juve team is some squad of bums and that nobody could have come in and made this work. There's a ton of talent on this roster, but the way that that he's taken over this squad, given him that passion, but again, like you said, given that fluidity, I think he's really trying to lean in and doing it very successfully, lean into the strengths of each one of these players. So with that being said, I think great job by Tudor, earned the spot to come in for another season. And so let's see what kind of players he's working with. And a lot of these guys are really be reminiscent of last season again, like we just went through the transfer window. Not a ton of change, so we can definitely touch on them pretty quickly. But we're going to start from the back. We're going goalie, defense, midfielders, forwards, as we always do, and we'll tell you our ideal starting 11 as we go into the first game this weekend against Parma. So at the back, it's so clear, one of the best transfers that Juve's had in the last couple of years. Between the pipes, who's the shot stopper?
Yeah, Michele Di Gregorio is the clear-cut number one. It was a great buy by Juntali. Listen, Juntali, before really quick, he has some great buys and then some just horrible misses. This is a great buy. There's some rumors that Donnarumma is on the market. PSG and him aren't going to extend, but we're not even in that market because Di Gregorio is arguably just as good as Donnarumma. He's obviously not as big, maybe not as big as or as much as a shot penalty stopper or flashy, but he makes some of the greatest saves you will ever see. He is consistent, very, very solid of a player, great leader as well. So excited for him this season because of what he showed last year and what he shows game to game. We also have a pretty solid backup. I would say probably one of the best backups in the league in Matteo Perin. I don't know how long he'll be there.
Absolute bag.
He kind of has requested to leave the club because he doesn't get as much playing time because he could be a starter somewhere. But it's a nice luxury to have him as a backup goalie behind Di Gregorio. But Di Gregorio is clear-cut number one starter, great goalie, very consistent. I'd say top 3 in the league, maybe 5. And I don't know how Di Gregorio has not gotten a call-up from the Italian national team.
Michele Di Gregorio 100% has won games for Juve. I think he has gotten a call-up. I just don't think he's ever been. He
Not
hasn't gotten.
consistent. I think he's gotten one call-up, but
I
then
think
it
he's
was
gotten
like
one,
Murat.
but he's been always third, and it's always been Donnarumma, and even Vicario I think has been above him on the depth chart for Italy. But on his day, Di Gregorio is and can be very well the best goalkeeper in Serie A, and he shows it game in game out. I will say one of his weaknesses is the fact that he's not the biggest guy. I think he's maybe 6'1", 6'2" at the most, if that. But he makes up with it 100% with positioning, with reaction times, and then on top of all of that, unbelievably good on his feet. He's very close and I think just right below Mike Mignon in terms of being able to play on the ball.
Debatable.
Mike Mignon is literally a center back, and then I don't want to hear it. But Di Gregorio, great on the ball, great distributor of the ball, and so that's definitely helped Juve in terms of trying to deal with a lot of teams' presses here in Serie A. So not too much else to say there, but look out for Di Gregorio to be in the running for goalkeeper of the year because, again, on his day, there's nobody better. So I guess, Mats, we'll jump into who's in front of him. We talk a lot about goalies in Serie A dealing with the fact that maybe their defensive line isn't that good. How do you feel about the center back? Well, again, we're going 3 back here. We have a couple of guys and certainly a couple of names coming back from injury, which I think we can almost treat as transfers in from a roster building standpoint here. I'll just run quickly through them. You give me the breakdown here, but Bremer is finally back from injury. A hell of a player, was playing incredibly well before he goes down with a season-ending injury very early on in the season last year. He's back. He's going to be presumably the captain behind Locatelli, but certainly the general of this back line and has been doing it for season on season. And I presume, assumably he comes back at full strength, that he's going to be able to bring that energy back to the back line. We've talked about Pierre Kalulu coming in from Milan full time now, 14 million. I love this guy. You love this guy. Incredibly versatile, very good on the ball, very composed. Right center back, right wing back, can do it all. Federico Gatti, the bricklayer, he's back this season. We unfortunately have Lloyd Kelly on the roster. Thiago Giallo is here on the roster as well for Tudor to choose from. And then I will just bring up Daniele Rugani is here. I believe he was on loan last season. I'll leave Juan Cabal out for now. So we have the other center backs. How do you feel about those? I know you mentioned earlier on this episode, which I don't think I totally agree with, that you need another center back, but you're saying that you need reinforcements there.
Yeah, listen, we need another center back because potentially, knock on wood, if one of these guys goes down, we're immediately thin. The right center back position, we're set, right? Kalulu, Gatti, good. You can even play Savona there. You could play both right wing back or right center back. You can play Gatti at the center back behind Bremer if you want to give Bremer a rest a couple games because he's coming off that injury. You could play Savona at the center back. Tudor did for the Club World Cup.
Don't love that.
Not amazing, but like center back is an easier position if you have solidified outside center backs. However, moving on to the left center back is where we are extremely weak and why I think we need to have another one in. Because Bremer is so good that you can play him at the left center back. He's not going to be amazing on the ball, but if you bring in a Vega and you have Vega who's very good on the ball and you play him at center back, Bremer will thrive at left center back. Under Mata, we played a 4-back, but on possession, it shifted to a 3-back, and Bremer took that left center back position a lot of times. I do think that it does take a little bit away from Bremer because he's the best in a center back. But once again, Vega is very good at a left back, and then Vega can still pull the strings at the left center back position. Lloyd Kelly's not doing that. Lloyd Kelly averages the most back passes. When we had Mata, Kalulu, and Gatti, and they were in the back four when Bremer went down, they both are not very progressive passers on the ball. So it's another thing. It was a lot of left-right passes rather than forward passes. So we need a progressive ball-playing center back, specifically on the left-hand side, in my opinion. And we had one in-house at Vega. I know Chelsea has him priced very high right now. I think as the market continues to go, we can potentially get him maybe on another loan or maybe for cheaper. He is the missing piece, or at least another ball-playing center back. Like I said, maybe Laporte. I know he's pushing for Atletico Bilbao or whatever that club is in La Liga that he wants to go to, but a ball-playing center back that's primarily left-footed would be huge. And Lloyd Kelly isn't a terrible center back when he plays against lower-level clubs like Hellas Verona, maybe a Como, even though I think Como's going to be good this year. But you can get away
Como
with.
It's not a low-level club. Let's not get that.
You can get away with playing him against those teams. When it comes to the higher-level clubs in the European league, he cannot play. Like, he cannot be the starting left center back. So, in a backup role, I'd be happy to have Lloyd Kelly, although that's an expensive backup. But we need a more progressive player in the back end. Rugani is also another option that can be center back from time to time when Bremer's injured. So we have some depth there and some versatility, which I do like, but we are missing a crucial piece as a left center back. And if we can just bring that in, I would then think that we have one of the best units defensively as a whole. And we also just have a ton of names. So Thiago Giallo, like, we should probably sell, but who knows who wants to buy him. Juan Cabal maybe can play left center back, but we're
I was
not
going to say, why can't he fill in there?
He's much better, in my opinion, going forward. He is lightning quick at the left wing back position. So, listen, I didn't get to see too much of him in a Juventus jersey because he tore his ACL.
He did get injured, yes.
So I wouldn't mind testing him out there, but knowing what I saw from Vega, how he led, how he passed, everything that he did, I think that is a huge piece that Juventus should bring in, if possible. But if not, I think the clear-cut starters, just based on everything we saw, is going to be Kelly at the left center back, Bremer at the center back, and either a Kalulu or a Gatti at the right center back.
Which I feel like you can be okay with, even if you do play a Savona at left center back, or honestly, you can put Kalulu at left center back.
He played a little bit there too.
He's not going to be detrimental to your squad if you put him on the left side, even though he is a righty. He's smart enough to play there. So I think that you have the depth. You got to get a little creative again on the left side. Unfortunately, you don't have the luxury right now of going to splash any cash outside of Kolomoani. Like, that needs to get done before you can spend any other money elsewhere. And so to go after a Vega with the price tag that he's had is really, really tough. You do think about how much you do miss Calafiori's signing last summer, because that's exactly what you're looking for, and it's unfortunate they couldn't get it done. But without going too much into Juve's graveyard of dead transfers, let's talk about the wingbacks, because there has been some activity there. I do think you have a ton of talent from a wingback position. The guys I'm talking about, obviously, Andrea Cambiaso, left wing back, can play that winger spot, is incredible in the midfield when you want him there or when you need him there. Vos is the biggest proponent of using Cambiaso in the midfield, but certainly when on his day and when he's being consistently played, he is one of the best left wing backs, not only in Serie A, but I would say in the top 5 leagues, clearly from his links to Man City over the winter, certainly proves that point. Going down the list, we talked about Cabal, we talked about Nicola Savona, João Mario, new player in the squad coming in this window, and then tell me if Jonas Rui is even in the
no. Jonas Rui is not a good player.
Not a good player.
I don't want him to touch the pitch. He's not solid at all. But the wing backs, it's funny because I think we're much more solid at the right center back position. The wing backs obviously way more solid on the left wing back position because we have Cambiaso. We do have the luxury that Cambiaso can play on both wings, so maybe you can slot in a Juan Cabal at wing back and then Cambiaso can play on the right wing. But obviously we want Cambiaso in his natural position at the left side. So much stronger there. Now, Savona can play wing back. Mata didn't necessarily utilize him there, and nor has Tudor.
I don't think Savona can play wing back, bro.
So then he's right center back. So then we have
100%.
João Mario on the left wing back, or at the right wing back, and that's really it. Kostic can play left wing back to allow Cambiaso to go back on the right. But we're not very deep here. You could play McKennie out of position. He's done that before, but we're not very deep at this position at all. João Mario's defense is what I'm worried about the most when he starts, especially with likes like Leao that come down that side, and you have a DeMarco and a Thuram or a Lautaro. So that scares me. But listen, like I said, he's been promising on the offensive side. I want to see what he could do, but we are not deep here, right? If we bring in a Molina and Molina can play on the right-hand side, it's fixed because now you have Molino and João Mario and then Cambiaso when needed, right? That helps that situation a lot. Right now, maybe you can play Nico Gonzalez there, but that's not his position. He is a workhorse.
That doesn't make any sense in my head.
Tudor likes it. He's a workhorse. That's all, right? He can't really defend. Nico Gonzalez, not even that good at offense either, so I hate playing him at the right wing spot. But that's why I really want Nico Gonzalez to be gone and bring in Molina, because I think that fixes this problem. Juventus is a couple signings away from having a very, very complete team. I think we've noticed that already in just the defenders category. And if we could just get a couple things done, we're going to look really good. But as of today, we are very thin at the wingback position.
Yeah, after going through it, I do agree. And I think that Molina link proves to be much more important than a Zagrova at this point. And so I do think you need to prioritize that. But your point about this Juve team being just a couple of signings away from a complete squad, you are very much a couple of signings away. Like you are today, the way that this is shaping out, it's just not there yet. Like going off the back of the Milan episode that we did last week, considering, granted, we did that recording 24 hours after we had signed 3 very important players for that lineup. This Juve squad needs to get some deals done, and I feel like it's getting held up by, obviously, Colomwani's business. But to your point, yes, we haven't mentioned it yet, but this Juve squad is playing 3 competitions and presumably going to want to compete very hard in all 3. We'll talk about that after the rosters, but you do need to figure out some depth there, and whether that's playing guys out of position or just have it, rotating more so than you really think. Those couple of signings are going to be really, really important. So day one, presumably, we're looking at Cambiaso and João Mario, no?
I think so, yes.
Makes the most sense. I do think, once you get past that, there's a couple of questions to be had, but there's some guys in this midfield that I think you can slot in there that can help out with that depth perspective. So with that being said, to the midfielders, the presumable captain again, Manuel Locatelli, has had some links away. I don't see him ever leaving Juventus at this point. He's here to hold down the midfield. And honestly, he was on the list. People forget, for the Paisans that were at the beginning of this excursion into the podcast, Manuel Locatelli was being watched and was being on the fraudster list. But I think last season really proved that he has a spot in this league. Whether he's a legend or not, I think is presumably he's not, but definitely a very serviceable guy. Especially for this Juve squad. We go to Kefram Thuram, was on our team of the season, Calcio Culture's team of the season, absolute stud. Great signing. We talked about it at length last year, but was going to the likes of Liverpool for 40, 45 mil. Came to Juve, sub 20.
One of those great signings by Giuntoli at 20 mil.
Another great signing for Giuntoli, and this guy needs to stay in the roster. He is an absolute stud in the midfield. We all love him here on the pod. Douglas Luiz, one of my favorites, and unfortunately didn't work out coming from my team in the Prem Villa. He's going back. The Prem, we'll hear about that in the next couple of days. Again, this is recording Tuesday night. The lone American now, Weston McKennie, still in the lineup. The Swiss Army knife, the American Army knife per se. again, like we said, can play in multiple positions, and I think he will be doing that this season. My boy, in such an unfortunate spell of terrible performances this past season, and with this preseason, doesn't look like it's going to change much. Toon Coop Miners has a lot to prove going into this new campaign this season. Juve bring back another youngster, Fabio Moretti, who had a great campaign at Genoa last season. Love to see him back. Hopefully stays on the roster. Think they're going to need him, especially given the fact that he kind of grew into that winger 10 player that we saw him play for Genoa. We talked about Filip Kostic, who has been on the roster for a couple of years now, was on loan, coming back, another versatile player. Matu said Tudor seems to like this guy. Hopefully get some minutes. I do like him. I think there's a talent behind that name. We'll see if he gets any minutes. And then you have Adzic, who has been in and out of some lower level games. Definitely a depth player, not so much going to be a game changer.
Yeah, I would loan Adzic out immediately, get him some time because he's shown some promise. So don't really want to focus too much on him. And even if he does play, he's going to be more up top in the 10 position. I think so is Moretti as well. But going back to like the four guys, right? I'm going to quickly talk about Douglas Luiz. We never actually gave him a full chance, in my opinion. He got injured. Very unlucky. He came from Aston Villa, which he never got injured once, played every game of every minute of every game of every competition. And then for whatever reason, Juventus always has injury problems.
That's true.
And we never gave him a real chance. I don't think he played one full 90-minute game. So very frustrated that he was never given a real chance because that guy has talent and he's heavily linked to Nottingham Forest, which that deal looks to be done at any point in time within this next week. And I promise you he will be balling at Nottingham Forest. They'll give him a full 90. And I think that, to be honest, Locatelli, I was high on him. I think a lot of we needed to bench Locatelli in some games to give Douglas Luiz some run, but we didn't do that. In the under Tudor, the main two midfielders have been Locatelli on the right and Thuram on the left-hand side. Thuram has thrived under both Mata and Tudor in that left center mid position, 4 goals, 5 assists last year. He's solidified in that spot, I think. He is the starter in every game that he's healthy, and I'm okay with that. The right center mid position, Locatelli, I think I'm okay with them rotating a good amount and playing Coop Miners in his real position at right next to Thuram in a 2-man midfield that we saw him do so well at Atalanta under Gasperini in the same exact formation Tudor runs. Yes, he did play more so in the left center mid, but he'll be fine in the right center mid. And we did see against Atalanta, Tudor did use Coop Miners at that right center mid, and he actually had a very solid game. He could have done better in some areas, but he played very well as that regista role, and I think we can see him more making those upward runs when he saw fit. So would love to see a little bit more rotation between Locatelli and Coop Miners and not playing Coop Miners in the 10 spot because it's just not his position. And Tudor said he's going to do anything in his power to revitalize that signing because we know the player that he can be. We spent $60 million on him. He had 11 goals. And in order to revitalize him, it is put him in his normal spot in the 2-man midfield. So I really liked that I saw what I saw from Tudor and what I saw from Coop Miners in that game. Weston McKennie, utility man, can play all across.
You know what you're going to get with this guy.
Yeah. And listen, Weston McKennie over the last 2 years has been Juventus's best player. Like that, it's just a fact. He had 10 assists last year. He had a couple of, I forgot the stats this year, but he was our most consistent player, played anywhere on the pitch. His contract is coming to an end and he wants an extension, and it doesn't look like Comolli might meet him where he wants to be met, so he might end up leaving. I'm not going to be pissed off if he leaves, but it will be sad because he doesn't care where you play him. He will give it all for the badge. He's very solid. You know what you're going to get from him. He doesn't have the highest ceiling, but he's got a very high floor, as you and Bose love to say. So he's a great utility rotational player. And every summer he seems to be on the out. And then every season he is the first guy on the team sheet that he will play every game. I do not want to see him play every game because I want to see Coop Miners in this 2-man midfield more. But listen, McKennie, he can play up at the 10 positions. He can play at the wing back. He can play center back some games, and he has for Juventus. So he's very, very reliable.
Yeah, I'll touch on McKennie really quickly, but I think there's another name that I want to really hone in on. But McKennie might be one of the most underrated players in Serie A. Every single summer, like you said, has been linked away. Although this summer seems to be the first one where there's not
But he's
no
linked.
links.
He's linked with not renewing his contract. So
Fair.
and he has some links to
He's
Roma.
on his last and he's on his last year. So I mean, that makes it a little more difficult for a sale right now. But this man is sneaky built for the moment. One of the most clutch players that Juve's had in a couple of years, and you put him in at any position on any given Saturday, Sunday, Monday, he's going to ball out. He's going to give it all. Engine, physical, great IQ in the right spots. He's going to give you everything that you need from that position. And so, you guys, I think if it's not a re-sign this season, it's going to be a very sad loss. And I don't think that everyone could realize that until the very next season. But in any case, I don't know if we need to spend too much time on Kefren Turam because of how good he is and how I think the league understands how good he is. And I'll let you touch on that in a second. But what I feel is way more important, I guess I'm in line with Tudor, and it's not rocket science. But for this Juve team to achieve what it wants to, Toon Koopmeiners needs to be that guy. He needs to be core of this team, making it happen on both ends of the pitch, box to box, scoring bangers, facilitating offense. He's a big boy. Get him in the box. He's a great defender when he's on it. But from what we saw last season, this man just looks lost. He just looks lost. And to your point, we talked about it at length last season. He's just not in the right position. You need to be able to tell him, stick to your guns, stay in the middle of the pitch, be an option, be an outlet, progress the ball, get into shooting range, get in the box for some crosses. This guy has a ton of talent, and he's a physical specimen when you see him in real life. You need to just get him in the right spots. He can't just be floating out on the right side as a winger, left or right wing back, supporting the offense from there. That's not how you use Toon Koopmeiners. So to hear that you say that Tudor came out and said that he's 100% the focal point of trying to get him back on track for the squad, I think is entirely in line with how they need to approach the season.
Yeah, I'd even add I've seen some reports that Tudor's thinking about playing a 4-3-2-1, which would mean having Locatelli, Koopmeiners, and Thuram all in the midfield, which would then obviously have Locatelli be the regista and have Koopmeiners in a natural position where he can make late runs into the box and play in that kind of Atalanta position that he has been so successful. So excited to see that if that happens, but at the very least, Tudor has seen something and is willing to make changes, because too many times last year I saw Locatelli in the position where Koopmeiners was, and Koopmeiners was playing as a right wing, which is just not him.
100%. Mats, I want you to run on this really quickly. We can't just skip over him, as he was impeccably good last season. Kefren Turam, what makes that man so good? What makes him probably the best player for Juve last season, and hopefully can replicate that in his sophomore season in Serie A?
Yeah, just his engine. He's up and down the pitch, very good defensively, very good at winning the ball back, very good at one of the best probably midfielders in the league at driving the ball forward, can pick up the ball and go box to box, can make a final pass, can, as he showed with 5 assists or 4 assists last year, can finish with, as he showed with either 4 or 5 goals. I don't remember what the stats were, but can finish, can pass, can drive, can defend, good in the air. So there's nothing on the pitch he can't do, and excited to see the step he takes with Yildiz, because Yildiz, Thuram, and Cambiasso on that left-hand side is a very, very strong, solidified left-hand triangle that can play off each other. They can be extremely fluid. Cambiasso can come in at the center mid. Thuram can go play wing back for a little bit out wide. Same with Yildiz. Thuram can make runs off of them. So it's a great triangle that they have and partnership that they have. I'm very excited for that left-hand side that Juventus has. Only if they had a left center back would be. Imagine if I said the Juve's left side was Vega, Cambiasso, Thuram, Yildiz. That's so solid.
That is incredibly solid. And I will say, Thuram, it's crazy to watch because he's not a tricky guy. He's not, a guy that's going to go out there and Rabona and put the moves on you. But for whatever reason, as he's grown into this position, one of the most progressive dribblers in the league, and doesn't lose the ball. He has this weird sense of how to attack space, not necessarily attack the player, but attack space. And the fact that he's got such a huge frame allows him to leg out and get after that big dribble, that big knock that he'll do into space. And then not only that, to your point about the triangle, when you watch this team, when they get into a groove, the one-touch passing that they get in triangles up top in those corners is incredibly fun to watch. And Thuram is right at the core of it, being the one in the middle, kind of being that give go guy. He'll give it to a Yildiz out wide, gets it back, will play off Colomwani, drive to the box. So this guy, again, you touched on it from a defensive perspective, and he's 100% there. But I do think that his offense goes a little bit underrated, because he does add a lot to this offense. And when he's firing all cylinders, this Juve team can get to all cylinders 100%.
Yeah, and I agree with the point. When he drives the ball, his strength, he can't muscle him off the ball. So he's going to go wherever he wants with it.
He's a beast.
But yeah, so the midfield, where it may not be as deep, it doesn't necessarily need to be as deep, because it's only a 2-man midfield, and you can slide in guys when needed. But moving up,
definitely the strong part. Definitely a strong point.
You want to move up to the forward line?
I do, because I think that's the one that's the most in flux for you guys, and then we know what needs to happen. But we just need to figure out if it's going to happen. What I want to know, Mats, if it happens. But Mats, we do need to see what happens if Colomwani doesn't come. That's another thing that I'd love to know.
That thought has not entered my brain, because I know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and I am not allowing myself to think what happens if it doesn't, because it's happening.
Okay. All right. Tell me about your forwards.
Yeah. So we have obviously Kenan Yildiz. One thing that Tudor did that Mata wasn't doing, I don't know why, is just, hey, Yildiz, you're going to play your left wing position. You're going to be able to free roam. You're going to play every game. I'm not going to sit you on the bench. Mata played Yildiz off the right, which he did do well on, but not his natural position, and didn't play him all that much. And we saw Yildiz absolutely take off when Tudor instilled that trust in him. The Club World Cup was an insane. We watched him have basically a hat trick. They gave him a own goal, so it only had two goals, but he had an insane volley and just a great game. He played great against Real Madrid. He was the only silver lining against Manchester City, the game that we got absolutely dominated. So he's doing it against high-level clubs. He's doing it against low-level clubs. So very excited to see what he's going to do next year, and I anticipate him taking a massive step in terms of statistics next year, because he'll be on the pitch and he creates, and he always looks to attack, take on his man, and drive forward, which is very exciting. We have Fabio Moretti, which I think is more of a forward than a midfielder. He had a good season on Genoa, was one of the most progressive under 23 players in the league. Excited to see him. He came on the scene hot when he was young, fell off a little bit. We loaned him out. He got some good experience in that Genoa, was probably their brightest attacking spot. So excited to see what he can offer. Conceição, we brought back, obviously, a little bit of a wild card. Doesn't always have the best decision-making in the box or in the final third, but is always looking to attack, always looking to create opportunity and take on his man, which you like to see. Jonathan David, newcomer from Lille, from a free, goal scorer, very good at link-up play, almost better as a second striker, which is why I'm so excited if we can get this Colomwani deal done, to have them both play off of each other, because Jonathan David can drop in, Colomwani can run him behind. Jonathan David can run him behind, Colomwani could be able to drop in. But very technical player, Jonathan David, very strong on the ball. So excited to see what he can do. And he brings goals and is a much better overall finisher than Dusan Vlahovic, and he's already proved that. He did score his first goal against Atalanta in a friendly, which was a bicycle kick. It was a pretty ugly bicycle kick, but it was a bicycle kick indeed. And what I'd say to him is his positioning in the box. He knows where to be. A lot of his goals from Lille last season or in his career were rebounds, but they were rebounds where he knew where to be and he was right next to the ball every time, which, listen, a rebound's a rebound. You have to have positioning to be in the spot to get the rebound. So he's a true poacher's poacher when it comes to finishing, but can also hold up the play, which we've been missing for years with Dusan Vlahovic. Nico Gonzalez here could be leaving. Hopefully he leaves. Not going to touch too much on him. Don't think he's good at offense. Don't think he's good at defense. I think all he's good at is running up and down the pitch. Vlahovic is frustrating. Brought him in for 80 million. did not pan out. Now he wants to just cash in on his highest paid contract in the Serie A, 12 million. 12 million, doesn't want to leave, wants to stay. Fell out of favor with Mata, fell out of favor with Tudor. And Tudor came in saying the best striker in the Serie A is Dusan Vlahovic, and he didn't deliver. Then he got all upset that Jonathan David was brought in, and he was posting that he's the number 9 for Juventus. So he's also just butthurt and sad about it, but he doesn't deliver on the pitch at all. So how can you you are what you deliver on the pitch?
Is it fair to say he didn't pan out, Mats?
Yes. 80 million?
80 million is steep, and I think that was the right price tag at the time.
At the time.
So he was so young. I mean, he was 21 and absolutely balling out.
Never scored that as many. I don't think he ever scored. I know he didn't score. He's never scored 20 plus goals in the Serie A. Never.
And you'd like to see that out of an $80 million guy. I think that he was definitely serviceable for the couple of years. Malta was not
serviceable. Is not what you need to say after with a guy with the price tag of 80 million,
right? Like, and also the highest paid player in Serie A. I get that. I get that.
Right now, he's coming off the bench and he scores every now and then. Like he scored in the game that we went to in Philadelphia. Granted, it was a penalty, but at least he finished. He scored against Atalanta, but he's coming in as a super sub. He's the most expensive super sub in the league, maybe in the world. So it's like. No, you can say he did not pan out. I do think, listen, I think he's got goals in him. I think Juventus might not be the best scenario for him because he clearly does not have a first touch. He doesn't know what to do, but he can smash in goals. So if you can, I think that Arsenal, he would have been good for Arsenal because Arsenal can do all the creating and they just need somebody to smash in goals. I think they should have possibly looked at him, but what he's put on tape over the last 2 years, who's going to pay for that guy?
Bad.
Bad tape. But I think that he can go somewhere and be successful. I do. But you need a team that does a lot for him, and then he just does the final touch, the final finish.
Right. And I think Milan, we talked about it with Milan, that could be a good scenario for him. Napoli, not so much. I think that Lukaku is such a big focal point for that offense, as we saw in the second half of the season for Napoli last year. That might not be his forte.
Conte might be able to teach him how to have a first touch and play back to goals. So it would be good for him.
Maybe, but his touch is so atrocious that I'm not sure that that's ever going to come. But let's focus on. We talked about Yildiz at length, and I think that if people haven't heard of or watched Yildiz at this point, you are absolutely missing out, and you are living under a rock. This guy is an absolute stud. He's going to be here for the long haul.
If we can keep him.
If you guys can keep him, but he's definitely gotten the eyes of the soccer world, at least from a technical standpoint. And I think this season more so, he's going to even get bigger. So a beautiful player, very technical, very excited to see him progress again this season off the left. I don't want you guys to just write off Moretti. He had such a good season for Genoa. I think that he's going to have a good spot in this roster, whether you bring in another guy or not. I think he's going to be useful. Again, another young Italian guy, and we all know the league needs that. So I don't want that to be shied away from, especially with all the money that you put into Conceição. The one thing, I know you were kind of knocking Conceição, and you don't love that buy, but every time you watch him, he is trying to create offense. And you can't knock that. His decision making he can have lapses for sometimes, but the fact that he's just always so focused on creating offense, whether he's scoring or he's assisting, he's always trying to push towards goals. So you kind of need that guy, especially in an offense that may not be so forward thinking, I would say.
Yes, but my thing with Conceição is I'm not that I'm in love with him, but he would be a great rotational guy. Bringing him in the 60th minute, he brings fire, he brings energy, he's quick. The tired legs are going to have trouble defending him, but I just don't love it for the 32 million that we paid for him, and because he's a sub. But really quick, I want to go back to Moretti. I think I have a hot take here because I'm always kicking and screaming that we are selling our young players or abandoning the Italian players. I would sell Moretti in a heartbeat if it meant we got Zagrova. If we got Zagrova, I would sell. If we sell Moretti for 15 mil to Napoli and we can take that money and go buy Zagrova, I'm taking it every single day of the week.
Dude, you're burning the Paisans' ears saying that out loud. That's crazy. That's actually crazy talk.
I am. I'm taking it.
We'll have to write that down for later. But I think we know what Jonathan David brings to the table, has been a perennial top scorer in Ligue 1 for a very long time, has led the Canadian national team for a bunch of years to some very good finishes in those competitions. So I think I think you know what you're getting out of Jonathan David. I think his ceiling is quite high. His floor can be very mid but again, you didn't spend any money on bringing him in aside from a small price tag for the agent. So I think that's a great buy. He had been, people forget, had been a $65 million guy in years past when he had a longer contract. You get him on a free. So I think that's just the smartest move you could have done. But the biggest thing, again, that I'm seeing this Juve roster, similar to what we talked about at wingback, just so thin. We're so thin up top right now. And this is even assuming Colomwani comes in. This does not scream to me a team ready to compete for 3 competitions, which is a little bit of a scary situation to be 2 weeks out from the end of the transfer window, a couple days from the real season starting.
If we bring in Colomwani, I think
it solves all of our problems.
I think we're good for 3 competitions, which I'm once again not even thinking about him not coming in. He is coming into the club. Whether Dusan Vlahovic leaves or not, I think that doesn't matter. If he stays, we have even more depth. I would like to see him leave just so we can clear the books. But if we could bring in Colomwani as that one player, I think that we have 5 guys in Yildiz, Moretti, Conceição, Jonathan David, and Colomwani that can play up top. I think I would agree that I would love to see both Colomwani and Zagrova in, and then we have 6 guys that can play for sure. There's a bit of business that needs to be done in order for us to compete. I do agree. I think Colomwani gets us there. I think Zagrova, now we can compete in all 3 competitions. I think Colomwani gets us there for the Serie A, and then we can hold our own in the Champions League with this club, with this lineup.
So with that being said, window's closed. What is the Juve starting lineup that very next game?
Top up front or a full 11?
Give me the full 11.
So I unfortunately don't think we'll bring in Vega. So I'll take Vega out. I think that we'll see Di Gregorio in the goal for sure. We'll see either Kalulu or Gatti. I don't think you can go wrong at right center back. You'll see Bremer.
Who do you want there?
I think I'd play Gatti there. Gatti had a really good game against Atalanta. He's bigger. And so, you know what? I'm gonna go a little crazy here. I'm gonna do Di Gregorio in the goal, Gatti at right center back, Bremer at center back, Kalulu at left center back, because I really don't want to see Kelly's starting. Cambiasso at left wing back, Thuram at left center mid, Coop Miners at right center mid, João Mario at the right wing back, Conceição. No, actually I lied. Jonathan David at the right offensive mid, Yildiz at the left offensive mid, and Colomwani at the 9.
You heard it here first. Colomwani, 100% coming to Juve.
And that's whether you want to play Colomwani at the right offensive mid and Jonathan David at the 9. That can be, like I said, a 2-1 on paper or a 1-2, or it can be whatever it wants. And I really, from what I've saw about Jonathan David, what I've seen from Colomwani from January, it will be they will play extremely well together. And then Yildiz can just take out, he could do it all. So that 3 will be a lethal up top, and I think we'll actually score a lot of goals. And that's one thing that Juventus has been missing, because we have not scored 80 goals in a season since the last time we won a Scudetto. We've been missing goal scoring, and I think those 3 up top will put together a lot of goals. And if we can add Zagrova and Conceição in the mix here, we're looking at a very strong attack. And if we can add Vega, we're looking at a very strong defense. So
say if.
Yeah.
Say if. No, I agree with your take there. I think my only change is I think Lloyd Kelly's could be starting for this team. I just, from what I've seen in the Club World Cup, from what I saw from the last 10 games last season, the fact that he's not a small guy, he is big, which I can appreciate, and he's left-footed. Having that on the left side is helpful. So that is my only change. But with that being said, Mats, this is a big season for Juve. I would say a little bit of a disappointment last season, only in the fact that you weren't solidly in that Champions League spot. It was a grind up until that last day, which is not the Juve way. So when it's all said and done, when all 3 competitions have come to a close in the middle of 2026 next year, on the heels of the 2026 World Cup, Juve has a successful season, what does that look like?
Yeah, and before I answer this question, I also think that it was not a successful season because people forget we were a couple points out of leading the Serie A with not that many games left under Mata, and he said, "Oh, yeah, our objective is not to win the Scudetto." Like, we were not far from it. Like, a lot of teams kept tripping over themselves, and Juventus, because they didn't lose games, they had 16 draws. They found themselves in a position to maybe make a late run, and we couldn't even do that. And then it turned out, are we even going to make Champions League? So yes, last season very much not successful. This is a great question, and I'm going to answer it the way that my new manager answered it, because I thought he did a very good job when he was asked, what is Juventus's aspirations this season? What makes it successful? He said, Juventus, it's not okay for Juventus just to play for the top 4 spot. We're not aiming for the top 4. We have a team that we think can compete for the Scudetto. We might not necessarily win it, but we want to be in the mix at the end of the season. I love that answer. I think we should be very firmly in the top 4 position. We should not be, are we going to make Champions League? We should firmly be in the top 4. So I think we should be playing for 3, 2, or potentially 1. We know what the Serie A teams do. They struggle against those lower level teams that like to sit back. It's hard to break that down. It's a defensive league, and maybe teams can fall in front of each other and trip up like they did last year. We can make a final run. So a successful season for me is easily top 4, not even a question. And we have a chance at maybe 2nd, 3rd, or even 1st, depending on how it shakes up at the end of the year.
Paisans, if you listen to the Milan season preview, that sounds eerily similar to what your boy said about Milan's successful season. That is almost verbatim what I call from Milan. And I totally agree. I think this Juve team has talent. The problem is that the depth, I think, is going to be an issue for 3 competitions. And so I've always been one to say that if you have to drop a competition, you kind of have to just drop a competition. I don't think that with this new Champions League structure that it's that hard to get to the knockouts. And so
I want further than the knockouts this year.
I was going to say, I think from a Juve perspective, you should be getting through the knockouts.
Round of 16.
I think round of 16 is probably the right spot. I don't know if you're getting further than that.
Listen,
I think that if you do get further than that, though, it's going to be an issue for your primary objective in that you want to finish solidly in that top 4, because when you do get down to that last third of the season, the Serie A, when other teams are tripping over themselves, you cannot be juggling a couple of competitions when you know you are not.
Yeah, we saw Inter
going that much further in Champions League. We saw Inter bottle everything at the end there. You would hate to see your squad do that with trying to vie for a semifinal spot in the Champions League, which we all know Juve should not be in the semifinals for the Champions League.
Once you get in the round of 16, anything can really happen. So it's just get in the round of 16, see who you end up playing, and then maybe you can make a late run. I'm not going to rule that out.
You have nothing to lose at round of 16.
I'm not going to rule that out.
That's how I look at it. How do you feel about Coppa Italia?
Oh, we're gonna win that. We gotta win a trophy, bro. Come on, we're gonna win that.
Get some hardware. Gotta get some hardware.
Where the Juventus DNA has to get some hardware, so gotta win that for sure. Lock that up. Get our 17th.
It's crazy. I think Milan and Juve have the exact same expectations for a successful season, and we'll see how it shakes out. Mats, I know that we have our full season table predictions coming up next week, so I won't ask you where you think this Juve team ends up, but who do you think, when it's all said and done, again, who's going to be that MVP from the season? There's a couple of great candidates on all 3, 4 levels, I would say, of this lineup, but really who's the one that shines through, that brings them to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's some candidates on all levels. Like, you can go Bremer here because we saw how much we struggled at the defense, and if we have Bremer for a full season, I'm sure we're gonna remember what he was 2 years ago and how strong. Like, when we had Bremer, we didn't let a goal in for the first, I think it was 5, 6 games. Remember that under Mata? We didn't let one goal in, and then he went down, and then we were in shambles. And similarly, we didn't let a goal in the games that he's played in the friendlies, that he's on the minutes that he's been on the pitch. We have not let a goal in. Then you have Thuram, who we saw what he did. Feel like he's gonna take the next step. But I think that our MVP, it's not going to be difficult to guess. We go as Kenan Yildiz goes this season, in my opinion, with offensive creativity, with creating chances. I think we're going to see him take a huge step. Some of the goals he's scored this last season are screamers from outside the box. He can
Absolute screamers.
every goal that he's in his catalog are like almost world-class goals. We're going to see him game in and game out for the first time for 90 minutes. I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table. He's always looking to attack. I think with the likes of a potential with Jonathan David and a Colomwani next to him, he's only going to be better. Also, in the preseasons, Cambiaso and his link-up play has been extremely strong. Cambiaso was another good shout for MVP, but I'm going to stick with Kenan Yildiz. I think that's who's going to be the MVP. Curious to know from an outside Milan fan, 2 questions for you. Number 1,
Tell me.
who do you think is going to be the MVP? Number 2, who are you most excited to watch on this Juventus team?
No, I agree with your Kenan Yildiz call from MVP. I like the way that you put it. Juve goes as Yildiz goes, and I think that the way that this guy has taken over games in the last couple of months, that if that continues to be the trend, you're going to see the likes of Paulo Dybala's ghosts on the pitch for the entire season. So I like that call. Who do I really want the MVP to be? Because I would love to see this player come back to what he used to be as Koop Miners, and I would love to see him be such a pivotal piece of this Juve roster like he was for Atalanta.
I would love that.
And I think that would I guess that brings us into the second question. Who am I most excited to see? I'm most excited to watch Koop Miners because I really want him to be the player that he used to be. We absolutely loved that transfer last summer. It took forever to get done. It finally got done, was on the top of the world about it, and it was just an absolute duck for the entire season. So I'm very excited to see him play. I'm excited to see Jonathan David play in a new league because I have thought that he's been a good player in Ligue 1, but that's, as we know, it's the Farmers League, and that, anybody can be good in Ligue 1. I'd like to see him come back and repeat that in Serie A. I'm also excited to see Bremer because it's an absolute shame to see one of the best players go down so early in the season last campaign. So I'm really excited to see that if he can come back to form, how much of a different defensive line this Juve team has with him at the helm. So there's a lot to be excited about with this Juve team, Mats. I do want to caution that I do not feel comfortable with this Juve squad as it stands today. There's a lot of business to be done in the next 2 weeks, and I know that
they've done no business over the last 2 months.
I know.
So
They've had so much time to do that business.
There's nothing that leads us to believe or think or rely or trust that they're going to get any of this business that they're linked to done. And a lot of this conversation has been off of potential guys that they can bring in.
Exactly. Which I just feel uneasy. I don't have the confidence that I do have in other squads with this Juve team. Of course, I'll stick with you and I'll say that Colomwani gets on this roster. If he doesn't, it's an absolute disaster of a transfer window. But in any case, even when Colo comes to this squad, we talked about all the holes from top to bottom, and I still think that they're pretty relevant and that there's a lot to be overcompensated for on those holes. And I think we talk about this a lot, and we saw with Milan, I'm not going to shy away from it, that you're really only as good as your worst player on the pitch. And for a lot of the time, it was that right back position, which you would think is not that much of an influential spot. But you have one hole, you have one guy out of 11 that's not playing up to par and up to speed with everybody else. You are going to get picked apart. And so it remains to be seen. 2 more weeks for Juve to get a lot of business done. Hopefully they do. We want to see Juve come back and compete and be part of that Scudetto race come season end. I, for one, think it's great for the league if Juventus is at the top. You obviously think so as well. I want to see Serie A be that exciting league for the rest of the world, and Juve is one of those biggest brands that we need to have involved. So hopefully we get a good couple of business in the next 2 weeks, and they come off to a strong start, and they live up to the potential that we all can see. We just need to get there.
Yeah, and I'll also just piggyback on that in terms of you're only as good as your worst player on the pitch. Although Tudor has been successful other places, we haven't really seen him manage in the Champions League consistently, manage a club as big as Juve. He's been at much smaller level clubs. I think Marseille's been at the largest club he's ever managed at. So question marks on Tudor as well to see what he can do this season. And I think he'll be under a microscope as well. And we could potentially see a similar situation if he's not getting the job done that we saw Mata and we're blowing it up 8-9 months in. There are definitely question marks here. They have potential to do a lot of good business and make this a very solid lineup if they can get it done in the next 2 weeks. But time will tell. So excited to see what this Juventus team can do in this coming season. But that's a wrap for this season preview for Juventus. We've covered everything from their mercato to their roster to the style of play to who we think is going to be the starting 11. So now it's just what they're going to do on the pitch. So great episode here. Paisanos, as always, do not follow us.
You got to know where to find us.
Follow us, Logan. Tell us where to find them.
Listen, Paisans, high expectations for Juve. A lot of questions, more than answers right now. But let us know what you think. We're all over the socials. We want to hear from you. You can find us on YouTube, X, TikTok, Instagram, at Calcio Culture FC. Comment, like, subscribe. Give us 5 stars on every platform that you have. It helps us out a ton for the engagement, for the ratings, everything in between. We're growing here. We're growing at an immense pace. If you were on from the beginning, we appreciate you. We love you. If you're just joining now, we love you all the same. This is going to be a long-standing campaign for season number 2, Calcio Culture. And of course, you can listen to us on all your favorite streaming sites at Calcio Culture FC on Spotify and Apple Pods. So with that, Mats, take us away.
Yes, Paisanos, do not be a gagoots and Forza Calcio Culture.